Hello everyone, my name is MyAngel and welcome to Unity Tutorials. Today we're going to be going over how to make a simple Photon 2D game online, and it's very easy. So to start off, let's go ahead and select our template, make sure it's 2D. Let's name our project. I'm just going to call it Photon Game Online. Before we actually get started, you are going to need a app ID. I believe that's what it's called. Just log in to photonengine.com. Click on this little person icon right here. Go to public cloud, your applications, and this web page, once it opens, is where this is where all your apps are going to be. So let's go ahead and create one for this. Create a new app, and then we're going to call it Photon Test. Make it Photon Real Time. Photon Test for the name. Other fields can be left blank, and then click Create. Here it is. Okay, so once you've located it, go ahead and copy this app ID. And once you have a copy, just go ahead and hop back into Unity. Okay, so we're in Unity. So our next step is to go into the asset store and import Photon. We are going to be using the free package, and Photon is free, but there is a plus package that costs about $65. Once the asset store loads, let's go ahead and search Photon. Hit enter. Okay, so we have a list of results here. What we are looking for is Photon Free Edition. Go ahead and click on that. Okay, now we want to import it. So go ahead and click Import, and it should be preparing the package. And once it's done, you will see all the files that will be included inside this package. Okay, so it finished loading. Now you will see this window called Import Unity Package. If we go to this demos folder, we can actually disable that because we don't need it. And if you want it, keep it there. And let's click Import. Okay guys, once it's finished, you should be given up this window called Pun Setup. This is the Pun Wizard, and it says, thanks for importing Photon Unity Networking. This window should set you up. Now down here, your app ID or email should be used here. Remember the app ID we copied? We simply just paste it in here. Cool, so for this project, we're just going to go ahead and do best region for hosting. Clear our PCs list, and auto join lobby. Make sure it's checked on our client settings. So now we go back into our scene. Let's create a new sprite. Drag this in. Let's give it a different color. Just a green. Let's change the name to player. Not player square, but player. Okay, now let's add a few components here. Let's add a rigid body 2D and a box collider 2D. Cool. Now for Photon, type in Photon and get a Photon view. This is used for viewing your player online. Get another thing called Photon Transform View. click on synchronized position and synchronized rotation, or any options that will be used. This is just so Photon can synchronize your position and your rotation online. Once you're done setting the settings, you can drag this into the Photon view component under observed components. Cool. Now Photon will constantly observe this Photon transform view and constantly synchronize your position and rotation. So, interlay option, I'm just going to change that to lerp and give it 10 as lerp speed. Okay, so what we can do is drag our player into our assets and make it a prefab. Cool. Let's go ahead and delete our player. Let's drag our square in one more time. Extend this. Scale it out on the x-axis. Give it a 2D collider, box collider. Cool. So that will be our floor. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new C# script. Let's call it Photon Manager. Create a new empty game object. Let's call this our Photon. Let's call this our network manager. Okay, now drag your Photon Manager into network manager. Before we drag any script as a component, what we need to do is wait for the scripts to finish compiling. And this will allow us to drag this into our network manager as a component. So make sure you guys have done that, and then once you have added Photon Manager as a component to our network manager, let's go ahead and open up Photon Manager. This should open up in any IDE that you choose. For this one, I'm using MonoDevelop. Okay, so let's go ahead and change the extension from MonoBehavior to Photon.MonoBehavior. And then on start, let's do Photon network.connect using settings. Go ahead and change this to any type of string value you want. I recommend using numbers. Okay, we don't need update, so what we can say now is void on joined lobby. So what happens is, first Photon connects to the server or the lobby using this statement, and then Photon looks for this method. So what we're going to say is, on join lobby, we want to create a room. Photon network dot create join or create room, and this is the name as the first parameter. The second parameter is room options, so we'll just say new room options, and then let's just say max players is equal to 2. Type lobby dot default. Let me just extend this window here. Okay, so now that we have that, let's do void on joined room. Photon network dot instantiate. Now we're not going to pass anything yet because I have to thoroughly explain what's going on here. On join lobby, it's going to check if a room is created. If a room, it's going to look for a room with the value name room, and if it's not there, it's going to create one. And then on there, it's going to look for on joined room, and then we want to instantiate our player into the game. So what we need to do is throw our prefab player into the resources folder. Now the reason you want to drag your prefab into there, whatever thing you want to instantiate, is because if you look at the overloads, you will see that it always gets a string for the first parameter for the prefab name. Make sure you get the name, the position. So for the position, I'm just going to use the prefab's first position, game object player, and I'm going to make this public. Player.transform.position quaternion.identity, and for the last parameter, which is a byte group, it's not really relevant or not necessary to be aware of what that does, so I'm just going to say 0. Okay, now once that's done, drag your player back into the hierarchy or back into the scene, and let's go ahead and create a camera, throw it under our player, go to your main camera, copy the camera component values, and then paste those component values. Cool. Okay, so another thing we need is a private game object, call it lobby camera, and let's make this a serialized field. Cool. So once we have that done, let's drag this in there. Okay, so on join room, we want to instantiate the player, and then we want to get our lobby camera and set it to false under being active. So we don't want the camera to be active when you join the room, because our player has a camera attached to it. Okay, cool. Once we have that, let's go ahead and create a new script that we can throw into our player for its movement and other properties. So player movement, let's open it in mono. Okay, so what we're going to say is if input.get key is key code.left arrow, then we want to say transform.translate to the negative position 3 times time dot delta time. And make sure you give the rest of the parameters values of 0, and we can just go ahead and copy, paste it, change the left to right arrow, and delete the negative number, change it to a positive number. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do an up key for jumping. So if input.get key down, this is different. So instead of get key, we're saying get key down. Then we want to say key code dots up arrow. Okay. Now what we need to do is set a rigid body. So we'll just declare rigid body 2D RB understart. RB is equal to get components rigid body 2D rigid body 2D. Okay, once we have that, we're going to say RB dot add force under jump vector 2 dot up times 4 force mode 2D dot impulse. Perfect. Now let's go ahead, drag this into our player if it's not already in there. And let's create a new script, and it's going to be another component for the player. It's going to be called player networking. Go ahead and open that up in mono. Okay. Okay. So this creates another serialized field, private player camera. Game object, call it player camera. Another serialized field, let's call it, well, we want to make private mono behavior an array called scripts to ignore. Okay, so on start, what we want to do is go down here, I'm sorry for the confusion, and then go ahead and do a photon view, call it pview or photon view. So on start, photon view is equal to get components photon view, and then let's do initialize or we're going to create a new method entirely. So let's do void initialize. Here we're going to say if photon view dot is mine, do nothing, else player camera dot set active false. For each mono behavior and scripts to ignore, item dot set dot game object dot sets active false. Alright, and we should be set for this whole game. Okay, so under player camera, go ahead and drag in your camera. Under scripts to ignore, select the player movement script, and that should be all. Player into the photon. Another important thing to do is under your player, select the camera, set its Z position to a value of -10. Okay guys, so before we actually continue, what we need to do is change all of our variables inside of this Photon Manager script to private and make it serialized. And also one more thing, make sure that we remove game object and set item dot enabled equal to false. Now we are ready for building. So let's go to file. Well, let's wait until the compilation is finished. Okay, now we're completely ready to test our networking. Let's go ahead and let's open the executable. Now this executable will be the host once we open it. It depends on which one we open first. So if you were to open the scene first, in the Unity editor, then this will be host. Okay, now we have a window popped up here. I'm just doing a window with a screen resolution of 640 by 400. Hit play. So that started. Now let's go ahead and start up the Unity editor game. And I spawn with the square. I can move around and I can jump. Now we're just waiting for the Unity build to run. And it spawned with the object completely on top of us. So we can move and our player will move. and as you can see, it captures our movement. And another thing is each of our player has its own camera, which is very useful. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good day.